Hello and welcome to In Conversation. I'm Chris Bishop. Now it's the end of an era in gold mining in South Africa. One of the biggest names in mining in Africa is going to step down after a lifetime in the business. I'm talking about Nick Holland, the CEO of Gold Fields, who joins me now to talk about the industry, his company, and also where gold mining is going in the future. So Nick, finally it's an end of an era. Just start off with how many years in mining in total for you?
It'll be 31 years at the end of this year, and it's gone in a flash. Chris, it's amazing to think all of the experiences I've been through, and it's all coming to an end, at least anyway at Goldfields.
And what was your first job in mining? Most people relish in the fact they had to start at the bottom in this trade. What was your start?
I was actually employed to run a treasury in the coal division of Gencor when we managed all of the coal shipment settlements and all of the forex around it. I had a small treasury desk, and then I got into some corporate development work in coal, and then I went to platinum, and then I ended up in gold. So I've been around a few commodities in the space.
Now you joined Goldfields 24 years ago. What was your first job there?
Well, my first job was CFO of the company, having again been involved in creating the company. So it was nice to actually get into a company that you've been involved in creating through a merger of the gold assets of the old Goldfields of South Africa and Gencor, of course. So quite a lot of history there.
And you're going to have a very busy year. It's going to be your last year, stepping down in 2021. You've got 9 mines in the group to nurture, and also you've got to start off this Salares Norte project in Chile. How busy is it going to be, and what are going to be your biggest challenges before you do finally step down?
Well, I think the big challenge is obviously to make sure that the operations continue to get through the post-COVID era, which I hope will be behind us by the end of the year or early next year, that we continue to focus on short-term delivery. You've talked about some of it in terms of building the new mine in the group, which is very exciting. I think it's been an incredible journey of 12 years to get to this in Chile. South Deep has continued to improve its performance, and again, we're very excited about that. And it's a big group to run, 2.5 million ounces a year with Salares coming on board. Every day has got something different. Every day has a new challenge.
And just give us a word as well how you've expanded in Australia, because I know that's a big contributor to your 2.5 million ounces a year. And it looks like that you might even go further in Australia.
It's hard, again, to believe that we never used to be in Australia until 2001. And now we're at 1 million ounces a year in Australia, 4 mines, and we are the second largest gold producer in Western Australia. I think there's more we can do here. We have significant land packages around our existing mines. We're pretty sure that there's a lot more gold there. So we're going to be looking to bring that to account, looking at organic opportunities too. So exciting that we can build a massive footprint and still have upside potential in Australia. And you know, Chris, the one thing that's interesting is that when I came into this job, we were largely a South African gold producer. 62% of our production was South African, and we only had a few mines internationally. We've doubled our international production. We've come up to, as you said, 2.5 million ounces overall, and we've become truly global. So I think that's a great position for the company to be in.
So one question I do have for you is, what are the regulations like in Australia? I mean, a lot of people complain about some of the mining regulations here in South Africa, but I'm told that in Australia it's not exactly a picnic either. They're very stringent. How do you find them as a company operating in both markets?
Yeah, Australia has got very stringent rules and laws, which are well policed by the state. At the same time, I think they are responsive. The rules are fair and they're fairly applied. But if you have a fatality or a serious incident, be sure that the authorities will take it very seriously, and you could even be shut down. Often in South Africa, we complain about authorities being too hard on safety. I would argue in other countries, if you're not safe, you'll have as tough, if not a tougher, response from the authorities. But I think it's fair. I think the mining code is clear. And if you follow all the right procedures and protocols, you can have a successful, sustainable business in the country.
Just on that subject, safety has been a huge issue here for many years. If you remember back in 2007, there was a national strike by the NUM against what they thought was lax safety. How much have companies like Goldfields worked hard in the last few years to increase safety? And also, how expensive has it been to increase your level of compliance?
Well, safety really goes to the core of our values. And bear in mind, the first day I became CEO, I had 9 fatalities in one day. So I had a nightmare start back in 2008. And it's when I coined the phrase thereafter that if we cannot mine safely, we will not mine. And it means that we will put safety first before production, and we'll shut down our mines if we have to. And in fact, I've done that many times over the last 13 years as CEO. So safety is number one. The other thing is, if you're safe, you are also productive. There's no trade-off between safety and production. If you get your safety right, your production and your productivity will be good. So it's not expensive in that sense. It's actually very productive. And it's like the COVID issue. We put people first. We won't compromise on safety. We want to eliminate all fatalities and serious injuries from our business. And I would say there's 16,000 people who would be telling you the same thing today if they were being interviewed.
And therefore, we go smartly then to COVID-19. I mean, it shut the industry down for many, many weeks. It's created a huge hole in South Africa's GDP. Post-COVID, well, hopefully, and as you say, by next year it'll be behind us. But give me an idea of the sort of costs we're talking about for your operations. COVID-19 cost you.
Well, we've lost about 3 to 4% of our production compared to where we thought we would be at the beginning of the year. So what's the cost of 3 to 4% of 2.2 million ounces? It's a fair chunk of money. We've also had to spend money to provide social distancing, PPE, de-densifying accommodation, etc. So I think overall the cost to us is probably the order of $20 to $50 per ounce on a portfolio of 2.2 million ounces a year. So it's not insubstantial, but I would say we've been quite lucky in that we've got off lightly compared to many others. Incredibly, in Australia, we just talked about Australia now, we've had no cases of COVID. In Ghana, we've had cases, but we've had a 90+% recovery rate on those cases. And I think we're starting to see now in South Africa and in Peru and Chile, we're getting over the worst of it. So it's been tough, but I think we've learned something from it. And we must take something good out of something bad and learn for the future. What could we do differently going forward?
And also in Chile, just this project for Salares Norte. I mean, a lot of people are talking about it. It's quite a lot of money, $860 million. What are going to be the hurdles there to getting this as a big contributor to these 2.5 million ounces that you're churning out now?
Well, building a project at altitude is no easy thing. It's remote. It's 4,700 meters high. It's in the northern Atacama Desert. It's a project that has to have everything fabricated off-site and then transported in. Luckily, we've done a lot of the ordering preemptively, taken into account the lead times for this. We have built a lot of accommodation in the camp, more accommodation than what we initially needed because of COVID. And obviously, you've got to engineer out to the finest detail all aspects of the construction. A lot of parts have to come together, but we've got a very good team. They've been working on this for 4 years. So what we're seeing now is the culmination of a huge amount of planning and putting a right team together who've done this before elsewhere. So I'm pretty confident that we'll get this right.
Bit closer to home now, South Deep. You've poured a lot of money and a lot of time into that, and it's one of your projects for your last year in the job. It's missed many production targets in the past, and there are a lot of questions raised about it. What are you planning to do with that mine in your last year?
Well, certainly the one thing that's, we think, changed the trajectory of the mine is the big restructuring we did in 2018, where unfortunately we had to say goodbye to 1,500 people. It was a tough decision to make. We tried everything else before we got to that. But I think at the same time, besides taking R1 billion a year out of the cost base, we reset the relationship with organized labor, and we're now on the right path. And at the end of the day, the issue around South Deep is not technical, it's people. And getting the right people doing the right things, collaborating with organized labor, collaborating with government. We've seen a sea change over the last 2 years. And I think we're going to see a lot more coming out of South Deep. What a great time to do it too, when rand gold prices have gone over R1 million a kilogram. So a good time to start bringing some extra gold out of the ground, which I think you'll see from South Deep over the next few years.
Just tell me a little bit more about, what exactly you say it was the people problem. Just give us a bit more detail on that.
Well, we probably had too many people in the business, first of all. We also had some really tough issues with organized labor, and we found that we weren't being able to implement the necessary changes we could. And by resetting that relationship and getting a more collaborative relationship with organized labor has made a big difference. And secondly, reducing the workforce to the tune of 30% has actually enabled us to get the right skills in the business, get the right approach, and get the right focus. So if you like, it's just reset the whole culture for us. And it's created now a view on the operation that we can win, whereas before we didn't feel that we were focused, we didn't feel that people were getting the right support. And I must say, having a stable management team on the mine over the last 3 to 4 years has also made a big difference. So it's a culmination of all of those things. Technically, it's not complex. The ore body is there, the grade is in the ground, and if you mine it correctly, you'll be rewarded.
Now, in terms of capital and the purchase price, you're probably still about 32 billion rand in the hole with South Deep. How long, and you must have made projections, is it going to take you to earn that money back to repay your investment?
Wow, that's obviously the big question, of course. If we stay at these sort of prices, I think we can certainly make really good money going into next year. And you'll be amazed. There's 50 years plus of mining to take place here. And I'm not going to give you an exact projection, but let's just say, I think this mine will make its contribution to the local gold industry and to the company in the years to follow. So it's a long life asset. I'm sure that we'll see good times here, and I'm sure we'll see a good return on the money we've spent in the fullness of time.
Before we leave South Deep, and we were talking about safety as well, there's been a lot of stuff written about the mechanization you've done at South Deep. I'm just going to ask you that question. I mean, how difficult was it to put it down? Because not every shaft is built for mechanization. And how has it paid back dividends so far?
Well, one of the benefits of mechanization is that you can first and foremost provide a safer environment, getting people away from the rock face. Bear in mind, we are mining big reef packages here, packages of 10 to 20 meters thick. If you look at the conventional mines, they're mining reef packages of maybe 1 meter to 2 meter thick. We are mining on a fairly flat plain. They're mining on a steeply dipping flat ore body. So we've got a lot going for us in terms of the geology. So that lends itself to mechanization. So we have big drill rigs, loaders, and trucks. We don't have people holding a rock drill. The rock drill operator does not exist on South Deep. And so we've pulled people away from the face. We're able to actually mine big excavations that can give us 10 to 15,000 tons sometimes when we drop a stope. and at good grades, and you have to mine a lot of reef in the old conventional mines to compete with that. So clearly you're going to get the productivity, you're going to get the benefits, and that's, I think, the magic of South Deep is you can mine these big packages, these big excavations with much fewer people and fewer fleet, and that's what's going to make it profitable over the life.
Back in 2013, you unbundled 3 of your deep level gold mines to Sibanye-Stillwater. Looking back on that decision, I mean, you see Sibanye-Stillwater's going great guns now when it comes to production. Do you ever wish maybe sometimes you'd held on to those mines?
Oh, it was exactly the right decision. We took a view that we wanted to globalize the company. Secondly, we took a view that we only wanted to be involved in mechanized mining. We wanted to position gold fields for the future. We don't see a long-term future on conventional labor-intensive mines in South Africa. And I'm pretty sure that Sibanye and others don't either. And so that's one of the reasons that we decided to make that move. The second thing is, and I said this back in November 2000, I announced this, that we would help to not only re-rate ourselves, but create a consolidation opportunity in the local industry, which I think has happened. And so the proof in the pudding is, had you bought a Goldfield share just before the unbundling, and you kept the Goldfield share now and the Sibanye share, I think you would have made about a 15% compound annual growth in your investment over the last 7 years. And I think that's pretty tough to beat on the Joburg Stock Exchange.
And also just about the regulatory environment as well. There have been a lot of questions in the years gone by. I know that the Minerals Council of South Africa has still got a court case going through challenging the once empowered, always empowered issue. As you come to leave the business now, looking back at all the negotiations of the last, say, 15 years on this, how do you feel the shape of regulations is in South Africa now?
I think we've got a lot of work to do to provide a stable regime that is consistently applied. And the fact that we've had 3 mining charter versions over a short period of time is problematic. The fact that we had to go through this whole issue about the once empowered, always empowered, I think was very unfortunate. It's still unfortunate that even on the new charter, renewals and replacements are not going to be honored in terms of previous BEE deals. That's problematic. So I'm hopeful that we will get progress on this, because I think it is scaring people away. And this industry needs a significant amount of capital. We need foreign capital too. And this is a question I get when I go around the world and I talk to people. This is a question I get all the time. And my standard answer is, we've got to work together, government, business, and organized labor, to actually grow the pie. Because if we keep fighting each other on these issues, there's only going to be losers, not winners. So I hope that we'll make progress and put this behind us. I still think there's big opportunities in mining in South Africa. It's up to us to go and grab them.
So how frustrating is it for someone like you? You go around the world, like many of your peers, trying to sell South African mining as an investment destination. Still, that there are so many questions that you can't or find difficult to answer, like once empowered, always empowered, also the political stability of the country.
Yeah, it is frustrating in the sense that, we've had an application in for years to do a solar project, and we're still waiting for approval, when the country is in dire need of renewables. In Australia, we put a microgrid together at our Agnew mine in Western Australia, and we even got the government giving us funding for it, and it was done quickly. So it is frustrating. The fact that we've known that Eskom is going to be a problem for years, and yet it hasn't received the necessary attention, that the amounts of fraud and corruption and looting that's taken place in state-owned enterprises, when that money could have been put to better use on providing much-needed infrastructure. The fact that local councils, local municipalities are not delivering. And communities come to us because the councils are not delivering. And we have to step in and try and bridge some of that. So it is frustrating, but I think the government does know these problems, and I think the president understands what has to be done. So I think we've got to support President Ramaphosa in fixing these issues, forgetting the past is the past. Let's move forward positively. I think he's acutely aware of these problems.
No, sure. I mean, everyone would agree with that. But in this very studio, just under a year ago, I asked him that question. Everyone knows you want to do the right thing. The only question people have is, when are you going to do the right thing? Surely for business people like yourself, you must be tearing your hair out.
Yeah, it's too slow. It's definitely too slow to fix these issues. The regulations on mining have been too slow to fix. The issue around renewables, as we've just discussed, there's a proliferation of laws being issued that are very difficult to interpret and to administer, never mind implement them. So there's a lot we need to fix, but we can't afford to give up. I think we've got to continue to look for opportunities constructively. We're putting our weight behind the Minerals Council of South Africa. As a member, we put our weight behind business leadership. We simply cannot afford to fail. We just got to keep going.
And what about the issue of energy? The other day I came across an article I probably read about 15 years ago talking about how energy by now should be up to 60 to 80,000 megawatts, and we're still sitting at around 40,000 megawatts on a good day. In the mining industry, that means potential big losses for you. You must surely be worried.
We are worried, and I think the reality is it's why we're pushing the renewables strategy as hard as we are. We know that if we're going to have sustainable energy for the future, we're going to have to do our bit, even at our own cost, and bring in extra capacity. We know that Eskom is going to have to retire a whole lot of its generation units over the next 5 to 10 years. If you project some growth on this economy, which has been a little cushion for us at the moment, the fact we haven't had growth, we'd be in a much worse crisis in trying to provide electricity. And there's a lot of people in the country who don't have access to electricity. So it's a massive issue for us. But as with all things in South Africa, I think business is resilient, and I think we'll find solutions to this over time. In our own case, we do have some surplus capacity, so we can move things around. We can hoist one day, use the process plant the next day. So that's a temporary benefit for us. But if we don't get a solution to this over the next 5 years, it's going to be a handbrake to the economy.
How practical is it for all big mining houses like yourself to become actual self-sufficient for electricity?
Look, if we split the company up into the different jurisdictions we're in, if you look at the Agnew mine in Australia again, it's only a 220,000 ounce producer, but it's got its own microgrid. We have gas, we have wind, we have battery, and we have solar. On a good day, renewables is 70 to 80%. Your usage, the traditional sources of energy. It's a long journey. I would say in 10, 20 years, we're probably going to be providing a lot of our own needs around the world, but it's going to be step by step.
And just lastly as well, on the renewable energy front, still people talk about it quite often in this country, but I point you to the experience of the independent power producers who spent many years trying to build up renewable capacity here. They wanted to make South Africa a hub, but it took so long for the government to pay up at the end of the process that many of the people have gone to other nations across the continent, taken their expertise with them. I mean, to me, that doesn't bode very well for the future of renewable energy here in South Africa.
That's true. Clearly, home is best, but I must say, with the experience that we're having of late, we're seeing that the local industry is gearing up, and I think watch this space. If we were having this interview in a year's time, I think you'll see there's going to be a lot of progress in this area because necessity is going to drive us to do it.
Anyway, so we're coming sadly to the end of this interview, but I'm sure a lot of people are asking the question now, what is Nick Holland going to be doing after Goldfields next year?
Well, it's been a long time. I've been at the company for 24 years. I've had a great time. It's been a privilege for me to do this job, and I'll certainly miss it. But who knows? I'm still pretty young. I love the industry, and I'll keep my options open. We'll see.
And did you have anything lined up, or are you planning sort of an active retirement?
I would say all options are open. We'll see how things pan out.
And your personal interest, if I remember rightly, you're a piano player, and also you support Everton. Clearly, I can see in the background there. How are you going to pursue your own interests once you finished at Goldfields?
Well, I would have liked to have played the piano, but sadly, I never had the talent. But I'm a fairly average golfer, and always trying to improve that. And I'll play a little bit more golf for sure. My wife and I love to travel, so we'll do some more of that too. And yeah, possibly go and get to see that favorite team of mine and hope for better times in the future and see where the mining industry takes me.
Actually, just for my own curiosity, I mean, what is the connection with Everton? Why did you choose them?
Oh, I supported them since I was a kid. Back when I was about 9 years of age, I watched them play, and I don't know if you know much about football, but
A little bit.
they used to be called the School of Science, and so I followed them for over 50 years, mostly through thin, but now and again some good times, and I've even become a modest shareholder in the club, so I do have a little bit of an interest.
Was it not the days of Howard Kendall? Was it not back in the 60s, 70s?
80s, 70s, 80s, fantastic time to watch football, and going back there and watching them from time to time, and looking at all of the memorabilia that they keep in the stadium. It's fantastic to see. But who knows? There's not many fans of Everton around in South Africa, so I'm probably one of the few. But you never know. After this interview, there might be a few more.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much indeed for your times and insights there. That was Nick Holland, the outgoing CEO of Goldfields, who is going to step down from the job next year after 24 years at the company, and he's planning his future, and he says he's open to all offers. And that's all we've got time for in this edition of In Conversation. From me, Chris Bishop, it's goodbye.